Festeggia oggi 10 anni di attività il CSR Manager Network e lo fa qui a Milano dalla terrazza A, però insieme ad un ospite particolare, Peter Bakker, presidente e CEO del World Business Council Sustainable Development.
It's kind of weird to make a speech in a bar of company that
Peter Bakker è a Milano per dare al CSR Manager Network italiano il benvenuto nel Global Network del World Business Council for Sustainable Development, la rete costituita da oltre 60 organizzazioni di imprese nel mondo che prendono parte alle conferenze mondiali sul clima e sono unite nell'impegno per promuovere lo sviluppo sostenibile nel mondo del business. Appena rientrato da COP22, dove è nata la Marrakesh Partnership, Bakker risponde alle domande di Valentino Piana, direttore dell'Economics Web Institute, per l'occasione prestata al giornalismo per giornalisti nell'erba.
Good evening, we have the honor to be with Peter Bakker, the boss of the private sector negotiating with the powers at the United Nations at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. You contributed to the success of Paris, you contributed to the further movements this year. How do you see, which are the major novelties from Marrakesh? What about the timing you see for the events to take place?
Well, I think Marrakesh was the first COP after Paris. You have now really seen that business and cities actually were there in much larger number talking about what are the solutions for climate change. How are we going to implement the Paris Agreement rather than why should we have a Paris Agreement? So that was a really different conversation than in every COP before. I think the way to tie the urgency of climate with the COP process is to focus on the Paris Agreement. Okay. In the Paris Agreement it is said that every country must review its NDCs, its targets in 2018. Yeah. And by 2020 it must look to make those more ambitious. What business now can do is to really focus in the next 2 years on talking to their national government, saying these are the solutions that we can implement, which will mean that your NDC, your target, can be delivered. And then in the run-up to 2020 COP, we can say, and these are the next evolutions of solutions, which means you can be much more ambitious and our country will be more competitive. I think that's a better horizon than talking about 2030 targets or the end of the century targets, because business doesn't plan in those long cycles. But if we use 2018, 2020, then we really can put the pressure on governments. We are aligned with what business is best at, doing things now, and together we will create the urgency.
Thank you so much. 2018 is the time of facilitative dialogue, to which the IPCC report, special report of 1.5 will appear. I was nominated to the IPCC Skopje meeting.
Congratulations.
Not finally shortlisted, but 1.5 will be a major issue for Italy because of the certification risks, because of the number of issues. So I really shared your views that the time is of action probably was yesterday. Yep. Now is the time to synergize action together, both the private sector, the national government, together to
and
see...
the cities.
And the cities, yeah, sure. The eco-neighborhoods, cities, eco-cities and normal cities should be binding and go very quick.
Bakker spiega ai manager italiani di CSR Network che non c'è alternativa. Le indicazioni sono chiare. Tutte le imprese del mondo devono calcolare i rischi climatici e immaginare il loro business in un mondo più caldo di 2 gradi. Le imprese che basano il loro business sul carbonio saranno molto in difficoltà, perché in un mondo più caldo di 2 gradi non ci saranno fossili da bruciare. Per quelle che basano il business sulle fonti rinnovabili invece è una bella storia, avranno potere ed energia. Il leader del World Business Council non lascia spazio a dubbi, non si tratta più di mostrarsi responsabili e sostenibili perché virtuosi, è una questione economica e di competitività, una questione di sopravvivenza soprattutto per le grandi imprese. Ma cosa chiedono le imprese ai governi?
I think globally the conversation is between business and governments is most about how do we actually get the right prices into the economy. So for instance, climate change is a big problem. Climate change is caused by too many greenhouse gas emissions. If we put a price on carbon, on emissions, that will drive the greenhouse gas emissions down faster than anything else. If you look in the food system, we all know that red meat, cows, are environmentally rather hard, are health-wise not the best food one can eat. If we put a price on carbon, then the price of meat will go up, the price of vegetables will come down, and that will mean that it's environmentally better and people will eat healthier. So pricing using economic incentives to make systems more sustainable is, I think, the most important conversation between governments and business.
After COP22, what will change for companies?
I think after COP22 the realization is that the move to a low carbon economy is unstoppable. It will happen. The disclosure on what are the risks that company actually run is now being integrated into the governance of companies. So every company must now begin to build a low carbon strategy. You cannot continue to think that on a old fossil fuel based strategy you can be successful.